Now let's look at sanctions as an enforcement tool. When states resisted privatization or alignment, sanctions usually followed. Sanctions function as political and economic punishment rather than commercial policy. They're enforced through the U.S. Treasury mechanisms such as OFAC. Tools include asset freezes, trade embargoes, technology bans, and travel restrictions. Sanctions escalate pressure without direct military engagement. The most powerful sanctions, though, target financial connectivity. Exclusion from SWIFT isolates a country's banking system, which is the clearinghouse that all these systems work through. Central banks lose access to global payments and settlements. Trade becomes difficult or impossible, and economic paralysis forces compliance or a crisis. And who gets sanctioned? Sanctions disproportionately target states that reject the US-led economic rules. These states often attempt to retain national control over their resources. Historical examples include Cuba, Iran, Venezuela, North Korea, and Russia. Sanctions function as economic siege rather than diplomacy. Since around 2014, the system has faced sustained challenges, though. Alternative institutions emerged through the BRICS. Now lending bodies reduce reliance on Western finance, and China has become the world's largest bilateral creditor since 2017. Through their Belt and Road Initiative, an alternative lending system has come into place. Over $1 trillion has already been deployed globally, and roughly $2 trillion remains under contract. Chinese lending now exceeds that of the IMF, World Bank, and the Paris Club combined. Typical interest rates, however, hover near 2%. Greater repayment flexibility is offered during economic stress, though. Chinese lending is not altruistic. Trade-offs include partial loss of autonomy and preferential access. However, extraction is generally less severe than earlier Western models, and many states view these alternatives as more sovereignty-preserving and better for them. There are many countries in the modern world, in the developing world, in the global south that we can think of as being tremendously undeveloped or underdeveloped and facing large-scale corruption. Well, part of that means that the corruption stems from being a vassal state or having corrupt puppet leaders that follow in line with exploitation of their own people in favor of enriching themselves. So modern power is exercised through debt and not invasion only. Structural adjustment explains persistent underdevelopment across much of the global south, and sanctions enforce compliance without occupation. A multipolar financial order is emerging, however, and the next phase depends on where the system fractures and who controls and what replaces it. As we're seeing with many of the overtures between Venezuela, Greenland, Canada, or Mexico, the United States seeks to preserve its hegemonic presence and keep control of these systems. However, the emergence of BRICS and the rest of the members of the BRICS and other trade organizations will seek to move away from this, and I can't help but think that other countries who were once burdened by these IMF and World Bank debts will seek more favorable terms that increase their sovereignty. We're hearing it now, so the trend will continue. Don't forget to follow, like, and subscribe. Peace.